Happy Monday and welcome to Rising. We have a great show for you all today. Robby, who do we have?
Julia Manchester and Philip Wegman are in for Team Rising and will weigh in on legal pushback to Biden's vaccine mandates. Plus, Kim Iverson is with us, per usual, to discuss tragedy that unfolded over the weekend in Houston at rapper Travis Scott's Astroworld.
But first, the bipartisan infrastructure deal has passed both houses of Congress. Biden touted the legislation on Twitter, saying he looks forward to signing the, quote, historic legislation that will make a once-in-a-generation investment in America's future. Here's more from Biden on the infrastructure bill.
A once-in-a-generation investment that's going to create millions of jobs, modernizing our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our broadband, a whole range of things, to turn the climate crisis into an opportunity. And it puts us on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century that we face with China and other large countries and the rest of the world.
The $1.2 trillion package, which includes about $550 billion in new spending, is a significant investment in roads, bridges, ports, pipes, broadband, and more. In tandem with the Build Back Better bill, economists are optimistic that it would be a boost to economic activity and job growth, though the Build Back Better bill must clear more hurdles before becoming law. Let's listen to what Biden had to say on how this bill alone will impact the labor force.
It puts us on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century that we face with China and other large countries and the rest of the world. It's going to create more jobs, good-paying jobs, union jobs that can't be outsourced, and they're going to transform our transportation system with the most significant investments in passenger rail, the most significant investment in 50 years, in roads and bridges, the most significant investment in 70 years, and more investment in public transit than we've ever made.
The Build Back Better bill, however, is still in limbo following the passage of the infrastructure bill. Dems are now focusing on the $1.75 trillion spending package that invests heavily in childcare, preschool education, paid parent leave, elder care, and climate change. Expanding Medicare and implementing leave are two of the most popular policies among voters, but have been opposed by Senator Joe Manchin, which some Democrats say robbed the party of crucial wins with the public. Founder and executive director of No Excuses PAC and co-host of Building the Dream, Corbin Trent, also a former spokesperson for AOC, has been following the saga closely and joins us now to discuss. Corbin, welcome.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. So what do you make of the current situation? Obviously, we have infrastructure down, but this next bill to go, and it's it's not totally clear how much that Manchin is going to let through. What's your read on the situation?
Well, I think it's sort of indicative of where we're at politically, that this bill is being touted as a once-in-a-generation accomplishment, that it's being touted as transformational, really. I think Biden's compared it to the Transcontinental Railroad and building the highway system. But if you look at it in, like 4 years ago, the American Society of Civil Engineers reckoned that we need somewhere around $4.6 trillion to get back to even, right, with our infrastructure. That's roads, bridges, tunnels, waterways, all that stuff. And we're talking about 1.2. We're not even a quarter of the way to where we were suggested to be 4 years ago to get back to even. So this isn't, I don't think, the problem is this isn't going to lead us into something that's transforming our society. It's not going to be felt, in my opinion, very well by most people in the country. And if you look at where Democrats are right now, I don't think there's a lot of indications they're going to do a great job selling it as transformational, because they don't seem to be doing a very good job of selling much of what they're doing. It's kind of wild that we've let Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin sort of become the dictators of the party and start running our agenda and where we're headed as a country. And just, it's like we're constantly chasing the ability to do anything. So yeah, I'm very disappointed in the bill so far, what we've got done. And I'm really a little bit worried about Build Back Better generally, since we've sort of turned over management of this to the moderates. So.
Right. It's now in Manchin's hands. And for the last several months, both the Squad and the Progressive Caucus through Pramila Jayapal have really been on the same page, with their two-track strategy to keep these together so that Manchin doesn't have leverage over this. They kind of split on Friday night with the Squad voting no on this and the CPC agreeing to the deal. How do you feel like the Progressive Caucus and the Squad have have handled the strategy around this over the last several months, and what did you think of what went down on Friday?
I was pretty impressed for quite some time that the CPC, the Progressive Caucus, was able to pull together strength, right? And they, a couple times beat this thing back at the speaker's insistence that it needed to get done, the president's insistence that it needed to get done, because I think there was unity in the caucus and assumption that this wasn't enough. But as you mentioned, there was a split there, and I think that's that fissure is what keeps happening here. And the problem is, I think that our party, the Democratic Party, and progressives in it sort of believe that things need to be done, that we've got to fix a lot of the stuff that's broken here. Whereas it seems like the moderates of this party and the Republicans generally don't necessarily think that it has to be done, right? So they're willing to say nothing is better than something. And too often we get against the wall as a party and as progressives, and we're willing to cave to get something done. So I think we've set the precedent yet again, unfortunately. But I'm still hopeful. Again, I was surprised to see that they did what they did, that they stood up and denied the speaker the victories that she wanted when she wanted them. So I'm holding out hope that we can do that with Build Back Better. But I don't see what our leverage is now. So since we already passed the bipartisan infrastructure.
Right. But what would you make? I'm sure the moderates would say in response to that, well, look, Joe Biden wasn't put in office to preside over transformational change. I think Representative Spanberger said something like that recently, that the American public doesn't want us to go too far, and that's what we are trying to shepherd this presidency so it doesn't overreach and cause additional backlash beyond what we've already seen.
I think I think they're not reading the room, right? I'm reading the New York Times the other day, and they're talking about Americans are flush with cash and jobs, and yet they're still not satisfied. People like Spanberger are out there thinking that America's on the right track. We're doing fine. We just need to tweak the edges. But we've got failing infrastructure. We've got a supply chain that's broken. We've got an eviction crisis that's ramping up and ramping up. We've got a climate crisis that's getting worse and worse and worse. And we're falling behind in just the ability to manufacture anything that we need to use in this country to improve our lives. And I think that actually these representatives are just missing the picture altogether. Americans, by and large, at least the ones that I'm speaking to, want to see a country that's thriving, growing, and doing good things, and they're getting increasingly frustrated at our inability to do anything. So I think they're wrong completely.
So Corbin, you're out in Tennessee, and in about 10 or 15
Northeast Tennessee, red
Tennessee.
As it can be.
And so, about 10 or 15 years ago, in rural America generally, Democrats were getting killed, but they were coming in the low 40s and high 30s, which is getting killed, but which still gives you kind of a substantial base from which to go on. In Virginia, a week ago, Democrats were dipping down into the low 20s and teens in some of these rural areas. Are you seeing that same erosion in Tennessee, or do you think that there's even further to go down from there? And how do how do Democrats find the people who are in between that 20 and the 40? The people who were willing to vote for Obama a couple times, willing to vote for Biden, but are now like, we're out of here. What do Democrats need to do to get them back?
Yes is the first answer. Yes, I do see further erosion happening. I see us slipping further from from people's minds as a party that's capable of doing anything. And I think one of the things, my mind at least, the way I've approached political organizing, the way I've approached governance is, I think the best way to bring people into the fold politically is to actually improve their lives in a tangible, explainable way, and then go out there and sell that thing that you did. Like, for example, we're putting money in people's bank accounts right now. Every month, people with children are getting several $100s and per child, right? And you don't hear that. You don't hear Democrats talking about that. You don't hear, we've put thousands of dollars in we've reduced child poverty by half as a country over the last year and change. You don't see people touting the victories. Have we beaten back everything? No. But have we done some good things as a party and as a country? We certainly have. But you don't see that enthusiasm. Let's do more. Give us bigger majorities so that we can do more. And what I'm afraid of is that you go back and look at the map, say, of an FDR victory. Or you look at the makeup of the Senate and the House back in the 30s and 40s when Democrats had supermajorities in both of those houses. And I'm afraid that's actually where we're headed, is to another Reagan revolution with the Republican Party, where we see these people just trouncing us. And these people, I mean, like, I was out on January the 7th in my community doing at a gym and listening to people lament the fact that they had not been in D.C. for the revolution. This thing was happening. We were going to turn the tide and finally beat back the socialists. And here they were sitting at home. And, I think so the Republicans and the more extreme Republicans, they're definitely organizing and they're making some gains in rural areas, but also among minority voters and urban areas too. It's not just the urban areas or the rural areas that are turning more red. It's the whole damn place.
The president is facing challenges within his own party to pass Build Back Better. According to Henry Cuellar, moderate Democrats were ready to tank the bill if Build Back Better had come up during the vote for infrastructure, saying, quote, "As of right now, there are enough votes, in my opinion, to vote no on the rule." But President Biden remained confident that he can garner support for his agenda among Democrats. Let's take a listen.
I'm not going to get into what made what commitments to me. I don't negotiate in public, but I feel confident that we will have enough votes to pass the Build Back Better plan.
So that probably does inspire confidence ultimately that something will pass, because people are not going to, members of the Democratic Party probably are not going to break commitments they made to President Biden. But obviously what does get passed might be, significantly smaller or different than what the progressives want. Will it be a victory worth celebrating at the end of the day?
I mean, we've gone from what, six trillion and change was what we started negotiating with the Sanders plan, I think, down to 3.2, down to 1.7. And it's the meat. The funny thing is, we talk about those numbers because that's how we sort of think of these things, right? But what we're giving up along the way is is improving people's lives, whether it's health care, whether it's child care, whether it's support for the elderly, it's access to more nursing homes and things that, there's a lot of things that are being cut out of these bills that are going to make it harder for us to make the case that we tangibly improve people's lives. Our Cuellar, Gottheimer, and Spanberger, the handful of these sort of right-wing radical Democrats, if they're left, if we leave them in the driver's seat of where we're headed as a country and as a party, then I think we're headed straight for that Reagan Revolution cliff that I was describing earlier. Because I don't think they have a vision for America. I don't think fundamentally they believe that America's best days are ahead of it. I think they're trying to manage the decline as best as they can for their donors and for their corporate interests, and wait for, I guess, for the Chinese to fix things for us. I don't know what they're waiting on.
Do you think, since they don't have any ideological project at this point, that where do you think they would come down on things like the child tax credit or universal pre-K? Let's say Democrats do extend that and create that in the next couple of weeks through Build Back Better, then they get wiped out. Will Republicans keep that going just because they're bankrupt ideologically and just want to hold on to power and wage a culture war? So why risk it by stripping universal pre-K and childcare? Or do you think that they'll say that's democratic socialist stuff, we need to get rid of it?
I think it depends on which wings of the Republican Party end up in power, right? I mean, you saw Democrats through the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s did a lot of transformational things from what we were doing with healthcare and Medicare and various, and Social Security all that stayed in place, right? Obviously, though it was something that rhetorically they like to attack, they being the Republican Party. So I think they'll run against it more than they will govern against it, would be my guess. Once these programs get in place, it's hard to repeal them because they are very popular, and it seems like a risky gambit to me.
Yeah. Corbin, thanks so much for sharing that perspective with us.
Thanks for having me.
Stay with us. Next, we'll tell you what's on our radars.